evening, Indiana. Welcome to a special presentation from Progressive Indiana Network here. Another virtual town hall with congressional candidate, this time Tabitha Zeigler, running for the Democratic nomination in the 8th District, joins me tonight. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers. I am host of the Who's Left podcast and editor-in-chief of Progressive Indiana Network. I am your guide for this evening. I hope to not be the one asking questions. That is your job. So, folks, if you have questions for Tabitha, please send them out in the comments on YouTube, on Facebook Live, and at our home at progressiveindiana.net. You can subscribe there as well. We'd sure appreciate it. Could use your help. But most of all, we want to hear from you, hear questions for Tabitha, and we are glad to relay those on your behalf. I am just your conduit, so please, questions in the chat. Be respectful, if you would please. Tabitha, first, before we get to the folks' questions, why don't you introduce yourself to the people out there?
Hi, guys. I'm Tabitha Zeigler. I'm from Covington, Indiana. I'm an autism mom. I've got 3 little kids with autism. I'm late diagnosed myself. I've been an autism advocate for a long while, community organizer, activist, basic rebel rouser, I guess. I've got a podcast that I started after President Trump was elected because I was trying to find a way that I could give back. And along the way, I decided to run for office because I was so disgruntled at what was happening with the autism community, and not just in Indiana, but across the nation. And I felt like we needed more autism and disability advocates in Congress because apparently enough people don't trust medical professionals. So then the next best thing is to talk to actual human beings that have autism. So that's why I'm here. That's why I decided to run for Congress.
Well, we certainly do appreciate that voice. We need more folks who come from atypical backgrounds, I think, in Congress. Definitely need more regular people out there. So I guess before we start getting questions in here, and we've got a great one in the chat already that I sort of want to build toward. But first thing I do want to ask is, we're in the news today. Sorry, I'm having some problems with my my graphics. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you a question just to comment a little bit today on the developments in Iran. Of course, we're now more than 5 weeks into our 6th week of this war. And today, President Trump has made some particularly offensive comments on social media, threatening war crimes to bomb civilian infrastructure in the next couple days, and also insulting basically every Muslim in the world by saying, praise be Allah, as he makes these horrible comments. So I'm going to let you riff for a little bit. I'm going to refresh my screen, come back in, hope I can get my graphics and my banners working really quick. But go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I think I'm a particular breed because I'm a millennial, right? And I was in college. I was in just a few months in to my very first year of college whenever the Twin Towers came down. I literally watched it. I was coming out of my room and getting ready for class, and I spoke to a few of my housemates at the time, and they were just glued to the TV screen. And I was like, what's going on? Like, it's really early. Why are you guys so glued to the TV screen? And they just pointed at the screen, and I looked, and I thought they were watching a movie. And they had to tell me, no, this is real. And as I'm watching, the second tower is hit. And I just couldn't believe it. And I think that's significant right now, considering the developments with Iran, because my generation literally watched our classmates, our cousins, uncles, aunts, just so many people that were in the military, especially from the Midwest, go off to war. And even back then, they were like, oh, you know what? This isn't going to be long. And we were there for 20 years. And I am feeling this is just revisiting that time for me. I don't think that this will be an in and out situation. I think it's going to be very costly, not just to the American taxpayers, but it's going to cost us blood and treasure like normal. There's going to be a massive amount of civilians that die, as we've already seen. It makes me very nervous coming from a military family and knowing a lot of people that are in the military right now. Just all my spidey senses are kicked in, and I know just how bad this is. And the reason why I mention I'm a millennial is because that generation, I feel like, has constantly been at war. Like, it was just constant. And we had the opportunity to still have somewhat of a decent childhood. And now we're watching that possibility for these youngsters, like my nieces and nephews, for example, disappear. And when our government currently is spending $1 billion a day, and they're telling us things like, oh, we can't afford healthcare, we can't afford childcare, yet we can go and bomb these little brown kids over here. I just, everything about Iran stinks. His comments stink. There's a large Arabic population in Indiana that they have to be terrified right now. I know I've got some friends that are either from the region or have family in the region. Anybody that's my age, unless you're just a war hawk or unless you have investments in Lockheed Martin or whatever, everybody's shaking their head like, no, this is going to be bad. The point of having a very organized, well-prepared military is to avoid combat. And here we're rushing into it. We've now gutted our military. We should be doing everything in our power to put our best people forward. And we are the least prepared for combat. Iran has dug in. They've been preparing for this for years. This is going to be long, and it's going to be bloody, and it's going to be awful. So I'm speaking up right now because I know better.
Well, let me ask Tabitha, and thank you for that. Congress hasn't declared war, and we haven't declared war in any conflict, despite the fact that we've been in countless conflicts since the end of World War II. That was the last time we actually formally declared war. And it seems Congress is mostly just asleep on the job, can't find its voice. Where is the opposition? What should Democrats be doing right now in this situation?
Democrats are supposed to be the party of the working man. And a lot of these military members are part of the working population. We're taking young kids out of college. We're taking plumbers. We're taking contractors. We're taking, all of these people that help build our infrastructure, that help maintain our society. We're not taking the white collar people. We're taking the blue collar people. And so right now, whenever things are so bad anyway, we just constantly see this gap between rich and poor. And it just makes me think back to the robber baron era, right? Like, these people don't give a damn. Like, they are totally fine with your sons and daughters just getting massacred over there, because for them, it's all about money. I mean, we've got, I can't stomach the guy, but Hegseth, like, Mr., I must beat on my chest and be a war hero. Like, that guy, he's leading our military right now. I just can't. It's just such a joke.
Yeah, it is certainly not ideal to have a television personality occupy the highest land in the office, and many cabinet offices as well. We need serious people in high positions, even ones that we don't necessarily agree with all the time. We could at least agree that we need people that are capable thinkers and not jokers like President Trump, like Pete
hesitating to hit the red button is the right response. You should not be rushing to hit the red button.
So along these lines, we were talking about in a way the democratic complicity in these things, going along with war certainly not being aggressive enough in trying to stop it, certainly. Paparazzi asks on, he has sent in a question via our web form. Thank you, Papa. But Papa asks, if I can find it, there we are. With the Indiana Democratic Party recently releasing its draft of the party platform, what are your thoughts about the current path of the party? Do you feel they are listening to Hoosiers?
The Democratic Party hasn't listened to Hoosiers in a long while. That is my opinion. They're certainly not listening to the younger section, which even though I would consider myself older probably in this demographic, right? Because I'm going to be 43. But the only people they seem to care about are the people that are already retired, that don't have kids, that aren't really effectively having to budget, that already have a ton of money in the stock market. These are the people leading the Indiana Democratic Party right now. So they're good. They're good. Their finances are good. They're already retired or they're on their way to retirement. And quite frankly, they seem out of touch. So no, I don't think that they are aligned with essentially most working age Hoosiers right now.
Yeah, well, I don't want to editorialize there. This is your town hall, so I will keep my mouth shut. But I do want to ask, I think, a follow-up question. And if the party is so out of touch, why do you still consider yourself a Democrat? Why do you run as a Democrat?
You know, sometimes I have to ask myself that on the daily as things evolve, because I'm not a Republican, though I come from a very Republican area. And I was always taught that the Democratic Party is supposed to be for the working man. I would consider myself a progressive because I like progress and I like us to advance. I think that's the point, right? We should not be going closer to the center. We should be going farther to the left. So I think for now, I am still within the tent of the Democratic Party. But as things evolve and they go closer to the center or Republican light, that may change.
I guess, what are the options, right?
We don't have many options right now.
Republicans certainly isn't an option.
Well, I mean, I'm gay, so that's already not an option, because besides trying to push me back in the kitchen, they're going to have camps for the gays and the autistics soon, so I'll be on the first train.
You know what? I'm glad you went there, and you mentioned this at the top. This is sort of your reason for getting involved in politics in the first place, is your defense of the autism community from the attacks from every direction. It certainly seems. RFK Jr., the current Secretary of Health and Human Services, says he wants to, quote, make America healthy again, and one of the things he's doing is coming after autism research and vaccines. They say that vaccines cause autism, even though this has been widely debunked, cutting federal health programs across the board. So can you maybe take a second to explain the actual damage that RFK, these Maha folks, and the administration at large, what are they doing? How are they affecting the autism community? And what are you going to do to stop it?
Well, I think first of all, right, anybody that doesn't have access to a good doctor that's knowledgeable about autism, that's already difficult. Just getting on a wait list to even get your child tested for autism from an approved medical professional that has worked in this field is already hard. The First Steps program in Indiana, if you are starting to notice that there's something different with your child, maybe they're not meeting their milestones, and that can be in a variety of ways. But that's generally your first entry into thinking something might be different, like something's just not quite right in your gut. But a lot of these very rural areas, for example, they don't have providers. They're losing providers. Even if you choose to do ABA, for example, a lot of those places are closing. They're cutting ABA. Now we have in Indiana, at least, there's a lifetime maximum of 3 years. So if you're already getting late diagnosed, right? Because you have that early period that is best, like early intervention is best. So if you can get a 2-year-old, for example, if you can get them into first steps, because first steps stops at 3. So if you can get them into first steps, get them their diagnosis, start to do all the different medical appointments that you need to maybe see if you qualify for SSI, get yourself on the Medicaid waiver list. Once you jump through all those hoops, which are a lot and takes a lot of time, then you get yourself on a waiting list to potentially be in an ABA center. Then you have to drive to the ABA center. These are people that actually know about it, right? So if your child is not speaking, having, trouble walking, things like that, I would say first step would be to contact First Steps in Indiana, at least, and start all of that programming. The thing that I don't like about RFK is right now you have these mothers, for example, that are already doing the best that they can. And they have this enormous guilt, right? Like, because nobody wants there to be anything wrong with your child. So you have these mothers, irregardless of what age, that are already questioning themselves. And then you have someone like that come in who's a person of authority that they're supposed to trust. And they're telling them, no, you did something wrong as a mother, something you ate, a vaccine that you took, whether you took it while you were pregnant, whether you gave it to your child, whatnot. These people are already suffering. They are already questioning things. They're already up against the wall. Then we don't even get into the fact that a lot of these people become single mothers because their spouses can't hack it and they leave. And then some of these parents have to leave the workforce as well. So then they're reliant on these programs. So talk about putting someone under a barrel. I think this should be criminal, the way that they're going after the medical professionals, because right now they're actually going to make these people's lives harder, right? Like if they get the early intervention that they need, then they will be more capable in the future to do more things, which means that in the long run, from a financial perspective, they will be less of a burden on the taxpayer. So if you can get them the services that they need now, they will be able to socialize and get as many services as they can to make themselves independent. Then, this is what I hate to talk about, but we have a nasty history with eugenics. And right now they're changing the laws in Indiana, and they're using words like institutionalization. And the minute that you start doing things like that, we're right back to eugenics. And what they used to do with people is if the state determined that they weren't able to be cared for or whatnot, they would throw them into these institutions, most likely for life. They were understaffed. There was a lot of abuse that would happen there. Sometimes there would be forced sterilizations. These are not nice places. And on top of that, they're very expensive. So Indiana actually did away with institutionalizations in 1997 after this big controversy of abuse. So way back when they decided, okay, this is costly, this is not great. It actually broke on a national scale. In the 90s, we came up with a better system that would allow these people to stay with their families. And right now we're trying to undo the wheel here. And I'm like, these places were already closed down because these were bad places. I'm not saying everybody that worked in these places were bad, but I am saying with 100% certainty that there was a lot of abuse that was going on here. And I take that stuff seriously because when I'm gone, I don't want my children to be thrown into these institutions. So we have to stop this now.
Fascism always needs an other, right? It always needs a scapegoat.
Always.
It needs you're the problem in your life is caused by somebody else, and it's the autistic families that are leeching off the government dime, right? It is those pesky brown folks on the other side of the world. It is transgender people, right? That seems to be another popular scapegoat right now. We saw obviously the Republicans have been at this for a couple years.
Yeah.
The trans community is like the enemy du jour, and a point they use to rile folks up. And sadly, it has been effective. So effective that even some prominent Democrats are saying, hey, maybe we as a party need to back away from supporting trans rights. We saw Gavin Newsom just a few weeks ago said Democrats need to be more, quote, culturally normal, right? And in a way, validating these attacks. And I guess I would like to hear your response to Newsom specifically. And then Chris in the comments on Facebook Live has a follow-up question to that. But first, what do you have to say about Newsom, and how do you defend the trans community against folks in your own party and in places as you're touring a large rural district and folks that maybe don't get it, maybe haven't encountered an actual transgender person in their personal lives? How do you talk about that?
Well, I would say first, right? It's really easy for a straight white guy to have a conversation about something he doesn't understand. So he's not invested in the community. So therefore, it's easy to put something like that on the chopping block. I would say, because we're talking about a very small percentage of the population, right? Like, it's really easy to, whenever you're distributing resources or, cutting up the pie, if you will, to say, you know what? Like, I don't know anyone from here. Maybe we don't need to give them any attention. And I think the mistake the Democrats are making right now is throwing the baby out with the bathwater, selling their people down the river, however you want to put it. They don't recognize that when they start segmenting things, it's like that poem, right? First they came for the unionist, eventually then they came for me. This is exactly that situation. And I think those of us that are humanists, and I always say, like, I'm a progressive because I'm a humanist, because I see value in everyone. I was raised in the Christian faith, and that was part of that stuck with me, right? Like, the least of these, you take care of people. You're supposed to provide for people, even if you disagree, if you disagree with them. I have friends that are part of the trans community. They're sad, like, as people, they're sad. They have family members right now that have voted for Trump that they feel betrayed. They can't understand why people can't see their humanity. I think that they're brave. And I think that people that don't stand up for the trans community right now are cowards. I think it violates the Christian faith. I think it violates most faiths. And I don't think that you can truly stand in your principles or your morals whenever you're selling people down the river. I also have a son who's 6, who is figuring things out. And for years now, he's played with girls' dolls, and he's worn dresses. He started to say that, I'm a girl, and I don't put any pressure on him. I'm letting him figure it out, but I'm kind of preparing myself for more likely than not in the future, because now it's been a few years, right? Like, his mannerisms, the way he talks and everything leans that direction. And I want him to be safe. And if him becomes them, or if him becomes her or she, that's my child. Like, I carried that baby for 9 months. It is my obligation as a mother to do everything that I can for my child, and therefore everyone else, and for everyone else's children. And I think part of the job of a politician right now, right? Like, you're supposed to represent everyone. That means if you have trans people in your districts, you represent them too. It doesn't matter if they physically disgust you. You have an obligation under the Constitution, the oath that you took to that office, to represent everyone equally. And I just think it's an abuse of power, it's weakness, and it's cowardice. And I just don't have I don't have any time for that kind of nonsense.
Speaking of nonsense around the trans community, I guess the issue that a lot of folks use as sort of an right there is like the first little knock on the wedge to drive folks apart is the issue of trans girls in sports. And Chris, who we should note is one of your opponents in this primary, asks, what is your stance on transgender girls participating in female high school sports?
First of all, let me say, I'm not a transgender woman. And I think that it would be really great to hear more from these people. What I can say is this. If you identify yourself, irregardless of how you're born, right? But if you really believe that you're a female, why wouldn't you be competing against other females? Like, I don't understand, same the other way. So I'll use an example. I have a friend of mine that was in the military that one of her best friends is transgender. And I think he's pretty far up, but he had to meet the demands of that position, right? Born a female, transitioned, but still saw himself as a man and was among men, competing as a man, could meet the physical demands of that position in the military. I think that we should be treating people equally. And if they tell us what their gender is, right? If someone tells me they're a woman, who am I to tell them that they're not? Same with the man. I'm not a man. Who am I to tell someone that's born a woman but then considers themselves a man? Who am I to tell them that they're not a man? So I don't know. I just think it's simple. Like, they're female. They tell you they're female. They're female. Let them participate with the other females.
I love it. So I'm going to go back to our web form here, and I've got a little bit of a setup for this one. There's more spots than or more characters than I can display on screen.
Okay.
So let me set you up a little bit here before I display this. So we frequently hear politicians, and this is from, I should note, Joey in Terre Haute.
Okay.
And Joey asks, we frequently hear politicians talking about accountability in politics, perhaps to a point of diminishing the weight behind the definition of accountability. How do you plan to commit to remaining accountable to your constituents? And what will that accountability look like to the voters of the 8th District?
Call me. I'm like a person of the people, right? Like, if you send me to Washington, something that I really hated. I hated whenever disabled people were taking their children. They'd load them up in the wheelchairs and all that. And then they would be physically going to Washington because they couldn't get these politicians on the phone and they wanted to plead their case with them. And then they'd be brushed aside. I thought, that is horrible. Like, I want people to know that they can call me. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be able to probably answer every phone call or every email, but certainly, like, I'm there to serve you. I'm there to represent you. If you send me, I'm just your voice. So please contact me. Tell me what do you want me to say? Like, if you send me to Washington, it should be a cumulative response. Like, I'm not always going to get it right either, right? Hold my feet to the fire. If I say something that you don't like, call me out. One of the most horrifying things I saw was when Jim Banks called that guy a clown after he got fired. And I was like, oh my God, you do not represent Hoosiers. Like, these people are a disgrace. And, they're just right now, they're bending a knee. They're not accountable. They feel that they're above us, right? Like, they don't have town halls. They don't respond to the emails. I was actually on one of those virtual town halls with Mark Mesmer. He probably is not aware of this. But after all that stuff that happened with autism, I think it was either March to May. I can't remember, but 2025. And I got on there specifically because I was like, all right, I want to hear what he has to say about autism. Like, he's supposed to be representing me in Congress, and I want to know where he stands. they wouldn't even ask him the questions. I don't know how many questions I sent in. They didn't ask any of them. They didn't ask one question about autism on that virtual town hall. And I was like, all right, are they going to ask anything pertinent? From where I stood as a constituent, it was just very glossed over. They didn't ask him any pertinent questions. It was just very like, I don't know, white bread, just very blah. And I was like, you're the guy representing us in Congress, honestly. Like, and I don't know him. I've never had dinner with him or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, the people where I'm from, they're the type that just don't F around, if you know what I'm saying. And I thought, this is the guy? Like, this is the guy my parents vote. My parents are Republicans, right? And I'm like, this is it? This is all you got. And anyway, like I want to continue to be one of the people, and please call me out if you send me and I do something wrong, because just know it wasn't my intention. And if I'm lucky enough to get this nomination, I want to speak for the people, because I want someone to speak for me. That's why I'm running.
Very good. Thank you. So I guess I want to sort of go back to something we were talking about a little bit ago, but also, along these same lines, it sounds like the Republican incumbent down there is not terribly representative of that district. Certainly doesn't engage there. It sounds like he had a virtual town hall, which is more than a lot of Republican Congress folks are doing, at least. But it also sounds like perhaps the deck was stacked and he got a bunch of softballs thrown at him. Now, we talked before about Democrats maybe not always being the most in touch with the people in their district. And our friend Cameron Grubbs, who is over in Muncie there, running for, I want to say, Delaware County Commissioner. Correct me if I'm wrong, over in the chat, over on progressiveindiana.net, Cameron. But Cameron asks, what is something that you would like to see Democrats focus on to better represent or engage with the people?
Speak to the younger voters. These kids don't have any hope. Like, I'm not saying that my life was perfect, but at least I got a shot. Like, these kids, they don't stand a chance. And you want them to vote for you? You want them to vote for you whenever, they go to college, they spend their money to get a degree, and then they're working at Subway because they can't get the job that they want. Like, we have so many people that are overqualified in positions that it's not like they don't want to work, and they're living in their parents' basement. Like, you have all of this private equity just buying up all of the homes in this state. Like, these kids, they can't even move out of their parents' home. They can't go out on a date. Like, what kind of future do they have? And here we're just telling them, data centers are fine. Private equity's fine. We should just roll over. Just vote blue no matter who. It doesn't matter what they stand for. And these kids are like, why would I ever have a child? I can't afford it. If I got married, I would have to continue to live in my parents' basement. How many jobs realistically do you expect me to have to pay for XYZ? And on top of it, like, you want me to continue to push closer to the center when maybe a lot of the younger generation, they're this generation that's like, why would I work at all then? What's the point? Like, you don't have any social services. Like, you're going to take all of my Social Security. I might not even have Social Security by the time that we get to that point. Like, how can you truly court these young people to convince them to vote for the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is supposed to be of the people? Because at this point, I'm not even sold, and I'm in my 40s.
And I should mention, our friend Cameron says he is running for clerk there in Delaware County. Sorry, Cameron. Thanks for the correction.
Oh, Cameron.
And thank you for your question. I also want to stay with our chat over on progressiveindiana.net, where we have a good little crowd going. Facebook, YouTube, you guys need to pick up the pace over there. But the folks over on progressiveindiana.net are lively tonight. So I guess I want to come back there, and our good friend Hoosier Lemon, who has saved my butt in a couple of these town halls, bringing lots of good questions, asks tonight a healthcare question. Would you support legislation to allow the negotiation of prescription drugs? I assume the prices of prescription drugs.
Absolutely. I mean, we have people right now that can't even get prescriptions. I will use myself as an example. My older son is diagnosed with autism and ADHD. You generally have to be 6 years old before they will, prescribe any medication for ADHD. Tried everything before the medication. The doctor then was like, right, we really think we should try this. Could not, and I had 2 types of insurance at the time. I had Medicare for my kids, and I also had postal insurance, which is good insurance. They would not approve this drug through either. And when you have a primary and then Medicaid or Medicare is your secondary, it always has to go through the primary. So often, if the primary will reject it, then it won't go through Medicaid or Medicare. My son ended up, because they kept having us try these different pills, right? They gave me 4 different generic suggestions before they would approve this original prescription that the doctor wanted. So once I went through the many rings of hell with this prescription, got to the point where he just wouldn't take it. So then he went without medication for like 2 months. People should not have to go without medication. Our system is so complicated, and the pharmaceutical companies, they have total control, total domination over this. Right now, our politicians really, we shouldn't have to ask for this. They're taking so much of this pharma money that the pharmaceutical companies have more influence on our politicians than their constituents do. This is just ridiculous. If you want to make sure that people are okay, you have to at least make sure that they can have access to reasonably cost prescriptions. If that means that, maybe their body type, they have to take the name brand, right? And there's not a generic option. The name brand prescription can't cost $13,000 a month. That's freaking insanity. Plenty of other countries around the world have different options. Canada up north, hey, I'm not saying everything's perfect in Canada, but they've got that nailed down at least. I mean, we have no excuses left at this point. It's just obscene, the amount of greed and corruption that's going on in our politics, considering prescriptions.
Let me stay on that. I'm going to ask a follow-up here. Just with our Medicare or our medical system in general, our healthcare system is a mess. You mentioned Canada. You mentioned some of these other countries that have figured this out. We can't seem to.
We're choosing not to do it.
I believe you are on the record as supporting Medicare for all, or a single-payer universal healthcare of some sort. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Let me expand that and ask, free healthcare. What about free college? What about building more public housing? What is your vision for what government should actually be providing for the citizens of this country, the residents of this country?
I will go back to how much we're spending per day in the war. We're spending $1 billion a day.
I think it's closer to 2, actually.
Right. So, yeah, I'm being conservative, right? How do you tell the American people, sir and ma'am, we can't do that. We can't have free health care. You are being greedy. What do you mean free college? No. We can't do this. Public housing, forget about it. The American public at this point is not blind. We have more expats that are either approaching Social Security or currently receiving benefits that are fleeing the U.S. because it's too expensive. I know, because I've looked into it myself. I have several friends of mine that are currently abroad. It is cheaper for people to go internationally to do tourism, like anything. You want to go and get new dentures, fly to Colombia. You need dental work, go to Turkey. Like, I think a crown is like $3,500. You can buy a plane ticket round trip, stay in a hotel for a week, get prime service, and get your crown in Turkey for $3,500. I mean, free healthcare, free college, public housing. These are not big ass. They're not big ask, and it's doable. Plenty of other countries do it. We can do it. We're just bullshitting the American people, and we're constantly asking them to cinch their belt and to sacrifice because we are rebranding our white collar businessmen who are just constantly taking from the people. Like, they're the new robber barons. It's obscene.
So I guess that always begs the follow-up question. How do we pay for it?
I mean, we could start by taxing the 1%. I know that's controversial, right? I mean, these people that are constantly taking, maybe they should give back a bit. I mean, it's funny for me to listen to people talk about socialism and to talk about what the American public can't have. And yet our politicians, the upper crust, like, they're actively participating in socialism. And these are the people telling you, you can't have that. You can't have that. Yet our politicians have great health care. And they make way more money than your average person. I think the median range in Indiana is about like 50,000, 60,000. It depends on where you go. How do you tell some people that maybe they only make $60,000 for a, 4-person household, as an example? If you're making $175,000 as a congressman and you're not giving back to your area, and then you're padding your pocket with like all of this money from corporate donors or APAC or whatever, and then you want to go back to your people and say, no, we can't do that. You're being greedy. I don't know. I just think it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's laughable at this point.
I tend to agree. There's certainly lots of ways we could pay for this thing, but conveniently, all of them seem to be off the table. So I guess one of the reasons I think these things are not on the table, they are not talked about, is because we are afraid that, well, it can't get through the courts. Maybe Congress can pass all sorts of lovely progressive legislation, but boy, that Supreme Court just tends to get in the way. I mean, if we pass anything, they're just going to strike it down. How do we get around a court that has been rigged against us? And am I out of line saying it's been rigged?
They're a joke. I mean, we should have term limits. They don't need a lifetime appointment. What do they need that for? Like, we should have term restrictions on the congressman. Like, you shouldn't have 80-year-old congressmen that are out of touch and like either don't have children or don't know what it's like to change a diaper anymore or how much a gallon of milk costs. Like, the same should be for the Supreme Court. I also find it extra egregious that you have some sitting justices that their families held slaves. And you're not going to tell me for 1 second that generational wealth didn't help them out in achieving their law degree and then putting them there. And I don't know, I just think that they're a joke. I don't care how conservative you are at this point. I come from Republicans, and I remember a time when the Republicans used to talk about things like limited government, small government. Let's not get in people's bedrooms. And yet these are the people now telling us what we should do in our bedrooms, how we should dress, whether or not we should have kids, how many kids we should have. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Certainly. So I guess moving on from the court and sort of expanding our scope a little bit, there are multiple, I would say, anti-democratic structures built into our Constitution, right? The court is one.
Yep.
The Senate is one. The Electoral College is also an democratic checkpoint. Our founders, when they wrote the Constitution, they were afraid of popular democracy, and they put in all of these various checkpoints at which the elite class could check the will of the people. And these are just some of them. So how do we dismantle these anti-democratic structures that continue 250 years on now to protect concentrated power?
I probably have a very unpopular answer. What I would love to see, I would love to see a bunch of normies get into these seats. I don't care if they're 25 years old, fresh out of college. We need normal people, working class people that get into these seats and can formulate some working class solutions to working class problems. I'll also say that the Electoral College was established to put these white men in power to have supremacy. Right now, we're having an issue with white supremacy again. This is how they maintain power over brown people, so it has to go. I'm very certain that this will take some time because these old white guys are never going to want to let go of power. Hell, I mean, if they had it their way, they don't want women in there either. So, we're going to have to crack away at that for a while. This is not something that's going to go away just overnight.
A lot of the things that I just mentioned just now, particularly the Supreme Court, for example. Let me ask, just kind of simple yes, no. Do you support expanding the court?
I think that could give us some options. I mean, we need some wiggle room, right? Right now, it's kind of stacked against us. So if the only way to get some sort of normalcy and to get some sort of equality out of that court is to expand it, then of course, let's do that.
It's something that could be done without amending the Constitution, which is a completely onerous process. Eliminating the Electoral College, for example, would require amending the Constitution. Yeah. The Senate, for example, a place like Wyoming has 2 senators. There are less than 1 million people living in Wyoming. Meanwhile, California also only has 2 senators, despite being multiple times, more populous than other states. Would you support admitting more states to the union to sort of balance out that I would say rural bias that we have in our Senate?
Are you talking about Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico, DC,
American
you
Samoa.
Want to split California in half? You know.
Yeah, I think right now we have a bunch of old-fashioned colonialism going on, and Puerto Rico in particular, right? Like there's a reason why so many white people were all up in arms about what Bad Bunny did, and he was just shining a light on the struggles of Puerto Rico. People have similar struggles in American Samoa, for example. If we're running around colonizing people and then we don't want to give them full votes, that's a problem. These people are American citizens and they need representation. So, we need these senators or these positions particularly, they need to be reflective of the population by numbers and by every other measure, right? Like we need a Congress and a Senate that very accurately represents the American people, because if we can't have that, and we continue to have just these white guys telling people of many colors, many nations, many languages, what to do, what they should do. This has not been working for a long time. It won't. We won't progress. And I'm saying progress on purpose, right? Because if you're progressive, you must progress. And if we are constantly stagnant, that's not helping anybody.
So I want to come back to our web forum, which our good friend Paparazzi, who doesn't give a city, just says they're in Indiana, but I appreciate them submitting a handful of really good questions to us today. Papa, let's just call them that, asks a couple things here, I think, with this question, and says, should hydroelectric power from the Ohio River be something to consider in order to offset the growing electrical demands of data centers in the Midwest? And is nuclear potentially an option for you? So I guess we have a couple questions here about data centers and their power demands, what we should do about them. Maybe we should we consider a moratorium on the building of new data centers until we figure that out? How do we address our balance of our energy sources between the old fossil fuels and renewable energy? Could something like nuclear that is carbon free but comes with a whole host of other potential problems be a solution? So a lot there, and you can do with that what you will.
Okay. Well, I will start by saying I'm from a rural area. I'm from a farming family. And so I'm a hard no on data centers. The research that I've done, people that I've talked to, there are so many negatives that come from them that I personally feel that they outweigh the positives. Especially if you have young children, because young kids are very susceptible to respiratory illnesses, as well as the elderly or older populations. And so far, it seems that these data centers cannot be our current electrical system is not able to support them, which means that they automatically then bring in these turbines. Everywhere that they've petitioned to bring in these turbines, it always starts off small and then grows like large quickly. I think the one up in Fort Wayne area has 175 or 178. And these turbines, besides the pollution, they produce the sound level of about half of a jet engine. I looked that up purposely because I had heard that a lot of people in some of these areas and other states surrounding data centers, the populace have been complaining about the noise. One family in particular, I think it was in Virginia, had to retrofit their house and move into their basement because their children weren't able to sleep. And I think it's significant too that you're not seeing these data centers like around very rich areas or in the middle of downtown. They're always putting them in rural areas. They're putting them in ethnic neighborhoods and Black and brown neighborhoods. And every single place that they put them in, where they put these turbines, the sound pollution goes up. These people are having medical problems. So then this is also a problem for our medical system later, which nobody really seems to want to deal with either. I care about the environment too. I'm open to suggestions. And here's one great thing about me. I ask a lot of questions. I do a lot of research. I would want to hear from people that are currently working in nuclear facilities that could paint a realistic picture for me of what this would look like. Like, what impacts to the environment would it have? Right now we're just running fast and loose with these data centers. Like, we are not doing our due diligence. The cost structure seems to be constantly passed on to the residents. If the goal is to make the rural areas of Indiana ghost towns, I think it's succeeding, because where you put these data centers that I've seen in Indiana, they are bulldozing hundreds of acres of farms to do it. And I always go back to what my grandpa used to say about farmland. He said that if you ever put anything on top of it, it'll be at least 100 years before you can use it again. So we're not just saddling the public with the extra electrical cost. We are literally decreasing our food's like independence, because Indiana has 63% of tillable farmland that we're currently using or could use to feed people. I would like us to lean heavier into that than these data centers. I personally have sort of this belief that this AI bubble is going to burst, and then Indiana's going to be saddled with a whole bunch of nastiness. Um, I know that these companies are already getting the carbon credits. Like, so if they walk up to a farmer's house, for example, and they're like, "Hey, you have 100 acres. Will you sell it to us? Will you lease it to us so we can build this data center on it?" Hypothetically, that farmer should be getting those carbon credits, but they're not. These corporations are. So they're already getting all of the benefits by coming into this state, right? To operate for like 50 years, essentially tax free. And they're also getting the carbon credits on top of that. So, what are they actually bringing into these communities? They're just constantly taking. So, I just feel like there should be a complete moratorium on these data centers. We need more data. Once they're up and once they're built, we're stuck with them. And we don't have enough data right now to see what the longevity of the influence of these data centers will have on Indiana yet.
So Tabitha, we're at about 56 minutes, and I've only got you budgeted for an hour.
Okay.
If you want to stick around a little bit
Hey, I'll
longer,
stay
I'd
as
be
long.
glad to have you. If you don't need to,
Let
if you
the
don't need to run.
questions fly. No, we're good.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, we can have Tabitha here for a few more minutes, and I got lots of questions still. I wanted to make sure I got in one, but if we don't have to wrap
I'll
right
stay
up,
as
then
long
I
as
can
you
push.
need.
I can push that off a little bit and come back to Hoosier Lemon, who asks a good question in the chat. And it's something you alluded to a little bit earlier. Would you support legislation to ban private equity and foreign or out-of-state investors from buying up Hoosier homes and renting them out?
Hell yes.
I should note that now listen, private equity are ghouls. This is
Yes,
me editorializing again. And this particular issue is a problem where investors, not just private investors or private equity, it could be a publicly traded company, any entity coming in and buying up homes and renting them precludes people from partaking in the American dream. It is a smaller portion, I think, of home sales than we think it is. It is less than like 2% of all homes are owned by institutional investors. Still, any number more than zero is too many.
Well, I'll give you an example. So even in my tiny town, which I think is like 2,500 residents, there is a company that has come in and they are buying up all these houses. There is one house in particular that I looked at buying in 2020. At that point, that house was on the market for, I think, about $50,000. That same house was sold to this firm. Now they're charging, I think, at least $1,000 a month in rent. So we're having a redlining issue in my tiny town because the locals who are from here cannot even rent here anymore. So if you don't already own and you're from Covington, you're having to leave. Some of these houses that were built here during that time, I was like, how are they making this work? Because they were selling them for like $600,000. And I was like, there's no way. Like, how is this going to work? Well, now these people, they can't afford to have these houses because at the time, whenever they got the original loan, they thought they could afford it. And then they changed that loan rate. And now they can no longer afford to be in these houses. So a lot of people came in from Illinois, for example, and we're like, hey, you know what? Like the tax is going to be cheaper in Indiana or whatever. Then they decided, okay, it's worth it. And then they jacked up the price. And now they can no longer afford that house that they wanted. And to come from a very, very small area, right? Like it makes me wonder how this is replicated throughout. I mean, even Airbnb, for example, you're seeing all these Airbnbs all over the place. And originally, great idea, right? Like maybe you can kind of couch surf or whatever, just rent a room. You don't have that sort of situation anymore. So now you have private equity that's coming in and then they are squeezing the locals out of their neighborhoods. I mean, you've got entire neighborhoods now that are Airbnbs. And it's just sad. Like how do you in good conscience as a legislator, like either produce or agree to legislation like that is literally squeezing out Hoosiers from the housing market. I don't think that benefits your constituents.
We've got a bad Airbnb problem here in Bloomington, in particular, being that a lot of folks will come in for, just a weekend. They'll come in for a football game. They'll come in for a basketball game. They'll come in for graduation. And it's more profitable to keep this thing empty for large periods of time and just rent it out at a premium on these big weekends. It's the economics behind it are completely out of whack. I wanted to ask a real hard-hitting question here from Cameron back over in the chat on progressiveindiana.net, who asks, how do you prefer your Indiana tenderloin?
I always, whenever I think about pork tenderloin, for example, I always think about the Indiana State Fair, and there used to be this little cart that my grandpa used to take us to when we were kids. And I think pretty traditionally where I come from, it's like mustard and pickles. If you want to go crazy, maybe it's like mustard, pickles, lettuce, and onion. But that's how I've always had it, and I've just kind of stuck with that.
I don't care how you have it, what you put on it, but it's got to have a lemon shake-up come next to it.
That's a real Indiana thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you can't have the lemonade to wash it down, don't even bother getting it.
Yeah.
So, hey, that was a lemon question followed up by a lemonade question. So I wanted to come back and talk about if you win.
Yeah.
In November and you find yourself in Congress come next January. Now, I think a lot of folks are expecting Democrats to win big this year if we have free and fair elections, inshallah, right?
Yeah. Right.
But we sort of talked about the impotence of Democratic leadership, particular the higher you go, right? More and more impotent the higher you go. And one of the feckless Democratic leaders is current House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who would be in line to become Speaker if Democrats retake that chamber come next year. So I will ask you, is Mr. Jeffries the right leader to become Speaker? And if not, who do you have in mind?
Someone that doesn't take AIPAC money? I mean, that might be a good start. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm struggling with Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, for example. I'm like, can you bend over any farther and grab your ankles at this point? Honestly, like, I don't know. Me personally, I think I would go for any of the women. And any woman that takes a hard stance on things, that doesn't take AIPAC money, that's not taking corporate money, that will like give it back to them, they would have my vote. I would be open to seeing who is really gonna walk the walk. That's if I got in, that's who I would vote for.
You sort of alluded to the problem with the leadership, particularly the higher you go within the Democratic Party, and is that they are beholden to the donor class, whether it's AIPAC, which you mentioned, but also just big money in general, wherever it comes from. How, given our current state of affairs, do you confront corporate power and capitalist accumulation from a seat in Congress, especially when a lot of your colleagues are dependent on said corporate power and capitalist accumulation for their seats?
Well, I mean, you just get big money out of politics. I mean, I honestly, on all sides, right? Like, I don't think this is just a Democratic issue. I think this is a Congress issue, right? Like, it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. Like, they're all taking it. They've become the uniparty at this point. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's AIPAC or whether it's corporate money or big pharma or whatever. Like, they've just got these people on their knees. And I don't think it's going to matter what we do if we don't scrap Citizens United and just get all of the money out, because we need to have people that are beholden to the American people, right? And they're just not. So my opinion is they've all got to go. Like, we need to clean house and start over. And this is why I say, like, I know it's controversial, and I know people are probably going to hate me for saying it. There may have been people that entered Congress and meant to do well, right? But any of them that have bent a knee, they know it. And they know that they're beholden to these people, and whatever they have on them that they're, trying to make them bend on. I just think, unfortunately, we're all adults here and we make choices. And right now, if your allegiance is not to your country, the Constitution, and the American people, you've got to go.
You also sort of alluded to one of the donor constituencies that has a particular amount of sway. We talked about AIPAC. And one of the things you hear from folks who support their mission is that anybody who criticizes AIPAC, you criticize Israel, you're immediately labeled an anti-Semite. So how do you answer that charge? I know I get it. And does it stop you from saying what needs to be said?
I guess I would first say, who is your allegiance to? Is your allegiance to the American people, or is your allegiance to the state of Israel? And I think all of our congressmen should be able to answer that question clearly. We should not have any congressmen, for example, that are going to serve in the military with the IDF and then come back and have a seat here. There are things like that going on that are a conflict of interest at best. I believe we've kind of been infiltrated, and let's just turn that on its head for a second, right? Like, if this was in Israel, like if we were talking about the Israeli government, they would never allow it, ever, right? Like, no other country has that kind of power. Like, we wouldn't want someone that was French or German I know we have our things going on with Russia too, right? But just to give it some context right now, right? Israel is the only other country in the entire world that is able to bring the US to their knees. And we just need to think about that for a second. Like, why is that? Like, at what point should Americans that take office be truly representing American interests, the American people? We have Jewish people here. We have Israelis here, and that's fine. But we have to acknowledge that this is not okay. Like, it's not okay just because it's Israel, right? Like, it should be not okay for any state, any country to do this. Like, I'm not picking on Israel. I've been to Israel. Hell, my donor, like my kid's donor, was Jewish. Like, I'm not someone, like, I don't hate Jewish people, but I also think you should hold people accountable, right? Like, the things that are going on right there now, and the American public did not sign up for that. Like, you should be able to critique, like, we should be able to critique our own government, and we sure as shit should be able to critique other people's governments. And if they have a dirty hand in the pot, if you will, it has to get out.
One of the playbook used over there by Israel against Palestinians has been brought home in a way, the imperial boomerang, right? They talk about that, and it's being used here on immigrants, and with this war and everything going on, and which rightfully takes up a lot of our mental space. It's sort of put on the back burner the fact that we had these massive immigration raids, and these ICE agents were shooting American citizens in the streets of Minnesota. So this is another issue that has split Democrats. Some say ICE, they just need better training. We got to take off the masks, got to have them wear body cams, let's throw some more money at the problem. And other folks are like, this institution is fundamentally broken and corrupt, and it shouldn't exist in the first place, and it should be abolished. So I guess I want to know where you sit on that question. Do you support getting rid of ICE? Can it be reformed? What about the larger umbrella of the Department of Homeland Security?
I believe in abolishing ICE. First of all, I will say that a lot of our local police force is trained by the IDF. That's a conflict of interest. And to see what the IDF has been doing to Palestinians, it's no more in your face. Like, we're seeing this genocide in 4K. And then we have to see these same tactics used on our own defenseless American civilians. I don't see a way to retrain people that will shoot an unarmed mom in the face. I just don't see a way around that. And as far as DHS, the world has been a very different place since 9/11. And then, of course, we've found out new information as we've gone along. I think that our money would be much better served at maybe investing in data analysts and things of that nature that would take a look at our immigration issues, make sure that we're not letting war criminals in and things of that nature, expediting the immigration process. Like, we wouldn't have these issues if we would expedite the immigration process, if we would do our due diligence to actually check people's documentation. Being that I used to work for the airlines, I know how easy it is to hop on a private jet. Like, the rich people never have barriers, right? It doesn't matter which country you're coming from, but the poor people always do. So, it does not fall on deaf ears with me that these people that we're throwing in cages are poor and they're working class. And the things that are going on in places like Dilley right now, especially considering the Epstein files and these girls being held in the butterfly rooms and, little girls turning up pregnant in custody. I mean, no, I don't see any way around not abolishing them, because we have allowed some horrible things to go on in our name unchecked. And I don't know. I don't see a way around it.
I guess I'll follow up and say, it's easy to say we should get rid of the thing.
Yep.
And I think we should. But what do we do? What do we build in its place? What does humane, functional border and immigration policy actually look like?
I think if we actually had talks with our neighbors, right? Like, actually had some good talks with Mexico. Right now, we're so busy just breaking any agreement and any talks down that we ever had. Man, that's going to take us years to even rebuild some of these relationships. But if we stopped exploiting these areas south of the border and maybe invested with them, they wouldn't feel the need to flee to the U.S. And for the ones that actually wanted to come to the U.S., let's make that process easy, legal. Let's make sure that they're not exploited, because we have a huge problem with human trafficking and child trafficking. That's no coincidence whenever we don't have firm regulations for, say, like our farming industry and things of that nature. We've got a whole different scenario going on with like modern day slavery in this country. And if we took the time to actually go through all that legislation and fix it and use some of that money to fill all those bureaucratic holes, if you would, that the rich are exploiting to take advantage of the poor, I personally think that would be a better investment and would be a more humane way forward.
So I guess we're at about an hour 15. I
Mhm.
don't want to keep you all night. Maybe
Okay.
just a couple more questions I wanted to ask,
Mhm, mhm.
sort of thematic things just about this race in general.
Yeah.
So there are 4 Democrats in this
Mhm,
primary.
mhm, mhm.
By the way, last day to register to vote is tomorrow, April
Right.
6th. Early voting starts Tuesday, April 7th,
Yeah, yeah.
and then election day is May 5th. So,
Mhm, mhm.
with all of that in mind, there is a certain dynamic in this race.
Yeah.
There is a clear favorite. One candidate has been endorsed
Mhm,
by the 8th District Party.
mm, mhm, mhm,
3 of you are, let's say, outsiders.
mm.
How do you consolidate the progressive vote and keep the establishment favorite from running away with this thing?
Hmm. I think we're all very different, right? I mean, you need to decide where you align. Like, are you more of a centrist? Are you more of an establishment person? Um, where's the cutoff for you? Like, is it important to you that someone cares about international issues? Do you need to hear a specific language from people? Like for me, for example, um, where my litmus is, I guess, is can you say the word genocide? Can you acknowledge it? If you can't, that's a problem for me because I wonder then when you get in office and then you see some really hard stuff, right? Like, what are you going to do with that? If you're constantly bending over for the party and just, I don't know, removing your facial jewelry or whatever because someone told you to, I don't know. That's really not like an indication to me that you're going to hold your ground. Um, I and I will I'll
Yeah,
say that for
if you,
everybody, not just my race, just in general, right? If you are willing to bend on something that's very minuscule but maybe means something to you, right? How far does that go? Like, where does the buck stop? And I would encourage people to really like do a deep dive, go into like people's social media history and stuff like that. Like, see what they were doing, right? What if there's a candidate in your race, not just mine, any of the races, go back and see what they were doing, say, like January 2025, and then check them out. Do your research. What were they doing consistently? How did they advocate for people? Like, what drums were they beating, if you will? That will tell you a lot about not just a candidate, but the person that they are. And I would say pick the person in the race that you think most aligns with what you feel is truly, truly important. And if there's someone in any race that your gut says, I don't know, like, I'm just not certain that they have the fight to bring it to whoever, maybe check out the other candidates a little bit more. Like, don't just automatically go with whoever the party's telling you to vote for, because they may not actually align as closely with your values as you think.
and then I guess the final thing I want to ask you then tonight, Tabitha, and thank you for being here with me, and thanks for the extra
Yeah,
time. I do appreciate it.
of course.
Let's say you win this thing in May,
Mhm, mhm,
and you break through the gauntlet, overcome the other
mhm.
3 outsider
Mm.
candidates and the establishment favorite. Well, you're still in a R+18 district
Of course.
facing incumbent Mark Messmer.
Yeah.
What is the path to victory in November?
Truth. I think people want truth and authenticity. Like, they want someone that's actually going to walk the walk. They want someone that they know will give it to Mesmer, like 10 toes down every single time. It's not necessarily important that it's Mark Mesmer, right? It could be anyone. But I feel like that's what Hoosiers are about, right? Like, when push comes to shove, we're gritty people and we don't want someone representing us that's just going to bend over or just take it. And unfortunately for Mark Mesmer, maybe he's an okay guy in person. I don't know him. I've never had dinner with him, right? But right now, all he's ever done is bend to Trump's will. And there's a lot of bad things going on right now. Like, for example, how can you not take a stance on what's been going on with Epstein or Iran? Like, the multitude of things that are going on, like as a human, as an individual, like how do you do that? Like, how do you toe the line that close? Like, I know he's got kids. I'm pretty sure he's got grandkids. Like, how do you look yourself in the mirror, right? Like, how do you look yourself in the mirror? How do you look at your family and say, I'm doing the right thing? Like, is your allegiance to this man, does it supersede your allegiance to yourself, to your family, or to your country? And these are only questions that he can ask himself. And I know for me personally, I think the people in my area want more. They just want someone to tell the truth. And I personally believe that in all of these races, the people that are the most authentic and that tell the truth will win.
Very good. So I guess with that, I'll ask you for some final words, and don't forget to tell the people where they can find you online, on social media. You got a website, pitch that. How can folks help out, donate, volunteer, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I've actually got a dot. A friend of mine helped me out with that. I'm kind of doing the eco-friendly option. So you can find me everywhere. Tap the Zeigler for Congress. TabithaZeiglerForCongress.com. If you want to email me, info@TapTheZeiglerForCongress.com. And if I'm out somewhere, just stop me. I'll talk to everybody. I'll always sit down and have a coffee with you, because I want to hear from you guys, and I want to know what you guys want, because at the end of the day, like, I'm one of you. I'm of the people. I want representation that accurately reflects District 8 as much as any of you do. I left my job to run for this office. Like, I'm a unionist. I want to make things better for people here, so let's do that. And anybody that wants to help me do that, I'm happy to have you.
Well, thank you so much. And once again, I appreciate you being here with us tonight. Next Sunday night, same time, 7 p.m., we will be back. Another one of these Progressive Indiana Network town halls with 5th District Democrat Jackson Franklin rejoining us for another one of these. Looking forward to that. That's at 7 p.m. on progressiveindiana.net. I will be back Tuesday night. I'm interviewing Alicia Faranek up in House District 20. Looking to unseat incumbent Jim Pressel up in that race. So looking forward to speaking with her Tuesday night at 7 o'clock on these fine affiliates. And I will be back next Sunday morning with Who's Left This Week. Thank you so much again, Tabitha. And thanks to all of you in the comments. Thanks for watching. We appreciate your questions. But until next time, I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.